Thank you. Mr. Gorman, welcome to House Labor.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman. I'm almost like Mr. McDonald. I feel I've been coming up here 11 years now. I've been testifying about the same bills for 11 years. And I'd just like to kind of challenge a couple of things. Mr. Rujo said about 17.8%. That's the mistakes. The federal government, the USCIS, I've sent all of you folks all of this information. It's the most successful government program. EVerify is the most successful government program in almost the history of the government. And according to the government, it's 98.1% accurate. And it doesn't harm anyone. And as far as discrimination is concerned, how can you discriminate against somebody if somebody puts in a name and it goes to a computer system and verifies that the person submitting that name is actually legally allowed to work in the United States? So if Terry Gorman comes back as a non-compliance and Michael Rujo comes back as a non-compliance, we both don't have a job. We both get fired. So how can that be discrimination?
Do you get fired or not hired?
Fired. Because you would have to be hired through the EVerify process.
And so you wouldn't
be fired after the fact if a non-compliance came back.
Okay.
And what happens is the employer would get that non-compliance back. The employee is then given 8 days to get a hold of Social Security and Department of Homeland Security and notify them that they got a non-compliance. Once they're notified that they have the non-compliance, that employee works till doomsday until Social Security and Department of Homeland Security makes a final determination. So nobody loses their job. And I just say one other thing. I took took more notes than I have notes. I was kind of not too happy with you, Representative Palangio, when you mentioned something about being laughable. The situation isn't laughable. And when we look at all of this testimony that we've had on these other bills about minimum wage, one of the things in the minimum wage field, and I don't know why that wasn't brought up or challenged, in the Providence Journal, in the last several months, or I don't know how many times, was mentioned that the manufacturing wage has gone down 34 cents per hour in the last 2 years. So how does that, you know?
Mr. Gorman, I'm just going to say what I've said to everybody else.
Yep.
When you wanted, the minimum wage was before us, you sat there patiently, you had every opportunity to speak.
All right.
We're now on the EVerify bill.
All right.
So I would ask that your comments be limited, just like everyone else germane to the bill, which is the EVerify bill. Minimum wage has come and gone for the day, for the night.
All right. Getting back to EVerify. I won't read you the first paragraph. I gave you some written testimony. But that first paragraph, if you have time sometime, please look at it if you haven't already. But I put down, EVerify will not harm any American citizens or legal immigrants. Will not harm any of them. Will not cut any social programs and will not require any tax increases. Will be a deterrent for additional illegal aliens to come to the state of Rhode Island. And if you have any questions about that, go back to when Governor Kachiri's executive order was instituted, and I believe that was in April. The following September, when EVerify was only for state workers, wasn't even for everybody in the state of Rhode Island, only for state workers, 1,440 students didn't show up in the Providence school system from the previous year. And it's my contention that the reason for that was because that deterrent was there from EVerify. It will make jobs available for unemployed Americans and American citizens and our returning veterans and legal immigrants. It will make Rhode Island, and I like this myself, will make Rhode Island more attractive to new, reputable businesses that would be more than willing to compete in an environment that is fair and transparent to everyone, knowing our state was in compliance with EVerify, as most of the new companies that I've contacted that have stated they're moving to Rhode Island already use EVerify. Almost, I think I contacted 15 companies that said they were moving here, and I would say 14 out of those 15 use EVerify already. And when we come to some of the statistics, and people disagree with this, but these are U.S. Census Bureau figures. The U.S. Census Bureau says we have between 30 and 35,000 illegal aliens living in Rhode Island. If you use the federal formulas, what comes out to be, we have 18,000 to 21,000 illegal aliens working in Rhode Island currently. They would start to leave by attrition. And just to bear out those figures, the Department of Motor Vehicles just published a study that said, if in fact, another bill, I'm sorry, referencing another bill, if in fact a driver's license bill would be passed, there would be 18,000 to 20,000 illegal aliens eligible for driver's licenses.
Mr. Gorman, please just stay on the EVerify bill.
Okay. Again, EVerify.
I understand the driver's license bill has been heard, will continue to be heard, and stay on EVerify, please.
But this is a list of some of the companies. There are 1,700 companies in Rhode Island that already use EVerify.
They use it voluntarily, don't they?
Yes, they do. So how can that be a problem? And I believe there are 24 cities and towns that currently use EVerify. So that would be similar to the state. The government of those communities agrees with EVerify. And listen to some of the other companies that use it: Women and Infants Hospital, Gilbane, Projo, CVS, Tasca, Paul Massey, Citizens, Textron, RIPTA, Hospital Association of Rhode Island, Delta Dental, AAA, Rhode Island Kids Count, Progresso Latino, and CHIPSA. All use EVerify in their hiring system. And there's some of the people that are here today to testify against this from those organizations.
Well, why don't, again, we focus on the bill?
Well,
I understand. And if you have a list and you want to submit it as testimony, we can take the list in, absolutely.
I'll submit that. And I'll just finish up quickly. In the bill, it's identity theft. No, I'm sorry. The department will use, contractors will have to use EVerify when they apply to have contracts with the state of Rhode Island. Now, I don't see any problem with that, because what we're doing without an EVerify bill is we're allowing the state of Rhode Island to hire illegal aliens. We're also allowing them to have contractors who send them illegal aliens as temp agencies. And if we don't have to look any further than 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we had one temp agency, very famous, Falcon Temps, I believe it was called, that supplied 54 illegal aliens to the state of Rhode Island to work in our courthouses and other government offices. And it was discovered that the illegal aliens were working there because one of them happened to make a copy in one of the courthouse offices and left the copy, the original document, in the copy machine. So if we don't think that this is necessary to prevent the state from hiring illegal aliens and prevent contractors from supplying them, we're barking up the wrong tree. And the last thing is that the state police and the Department of Corrections, we want them to use 287G. Basically, all 287G does, it allows the state police, local police departments, and the Department of Corrections to communicate with ICE in the event they encounter an illegal alien who's committed a crime. And that's all that 287G does. Now, that only makes common sense to me. We're not running out, knocking on people's doors and saying, you're an illegal alien, we're going to get you, and all of that stuff. This is if an illegal alien commits a crime, the state police and those other organizations are going to be able to talk to ICE and say, this person that just raped a woman from Warwick and brought her to Providence to do it is an illegal alien. Under that system, that fellow had already been arrested by the Providence police twice and let go twice, and he was an illegal alien. So to me, it's so common sense. It's not funny. It really is. I don't know why this wouldn't
Has anybody in law enforcement asked for it?
What?
Has anybody in law enforcement asked for it?
No, but let me tell you this. Let me say this now, and this relates to the bill also, in my opinion. You could go around the state of Rhode Island and find a community where you had a friend that was a police officer. And if that friend told you the truth, like a police officer, when I gave a talk in South County, said right out loud in front of 54 people, I commented that I live in Lincoln, Rhode Island. A Lincoln police officer brought an illegal alien back to the barracks. They called ICE, and ICE didn't have anybody to come and get him. They said, let him go. I told that story. In the back of the room, some male voice said, if I ever brought back some illegal alien to the barracks, my chief would have my can. And everybody in the room, 54 people, turned around and looked at him like, really? You know, if you brought an illegal alien back to the barracks because you got to fill out 2 hours of paperwork or whatever that might be, it just doesn't make any sense. And I'd like to ask you, I'd like to make a comment and ask you a question, because you run a good committee, but there's no committee. There's no quorum. For the most part, we sat here all this time, Joe, with 3 people. Now, I don't know what the rest of the people in the room, but that doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy about making this testimony when I'm only talking to 4 people. And the bill in the beginning was held for further study.
As all bills are, and we have just so you know, you're saying this, and everything you're saying is true, but we haven't moved any bill yet in this committee, and we will do that. We have a set of rules we follow, and the first part of this General Assembly is the testimony part.
But that would be my question for you. Could you tell us all, like especially in the instance of EVerify, which we've been fighting for 11 years? What happens next? Now, only 4 people at the most have heard testimony about this immigration bill. 4 people at the most have heard testimony. What happens now that it's held for further study? What chance does this bill, and what has to happen in order for this bill to come back for you folks to discuss it further later on?
It's a process, and we'll continue to gather testimony, written testimony. Bill, if there's enough general support for the bill, we'll post it for another hearing, and we'll vote on it. It's a process we follow. It has the exact same chance, Terry, as every other bill before this committee. And the reason that you see some members coming and leaving and going is we have simultaneous committees going on. If you go down to the House Finance, you'll find a bunch of people there who sit on several committees. You have you have Senate representatives going over to the Senate and testifying in Senate bills. That's why this particular hearing and all these bills today have some special interest. We're videotaping them, we're televising them. So this is all going to be online. Anybody, representative, any member of the public, any legislature, any member of the press can go online and watch the proceedings here and see what happens. So this is all much transparent. It's out in the open. And if there's enough support for the bill, I can't speak. This is only my second term in the General Assembly. It's only my, second year, really, of being the chairman of the Labor. I can't speak for what happened in the past, but I will guess, an educated guess, the reason bills don't go is because there's not a lot of support for them. So we tend to move, not always. There was a bill that came out on the floor yesterday, and it had to do with the city of Pawtucket. Thank you, Dawn. And having to do with the regulation of massage therapists and massage parlors, and that bill got recommitted. So just because the bill comes out doesn't mean it passes. So that's the process. That's where we go from here. We continue to gather more information and testimony, and even after the fact, you'd be surprised, especially on an issue like this, we get a lot of correspondence from all over the country via email. I think at the earlier part of the session, I held up some emails that I received. The clerk keeps it all. Our lawyer will take notes. We give a report back, and we discuss it amongst the committee. And if there's enough support, we move the bill. And that's the process. And I want you to understand that that's the same process that we follow for every single bill. I know you've been fighting this fight for 11 years. I know you're very passionate about it. I get your emails. I read them. Sometimes I respond to them. I get your emails. You email me. I don't know everybody else, but you email me all year round, and you're very passionate about it, and you bring a lot of commitment to to your cause. No, it's no different from anybody else's cause. People feel very passionate, and I respect that. I respect it about you and the cause. But I can guess that there hasn't been a lot of support. You had a governor who wanted it, Governor Kachiri, and I don't know if the legislature acted. I wasn't here then.
No, they did. They put in the governor's executive order for 2 years.
Yeah,
and then
that was executive order. That wasn't the General Assembly. Was the General Assembly back then?
I started this committee and made it to the floor.
Yeah, I wanted to say that earlier. When that happened, and the advocates for the other side would tell you differently. But in regard to like the state police and the Department of Corrections and everyone else, there wasn't one single viable complaint lodged when Governor Kachiri's executive order for illegal immigration control was in effect. Not one. So I don't know who it hurt, and I go back again to one of my first statements, is when that executive order was in place, it was in April, the following September, 1,440 students didn't show up for school in the Providence school system. And there were more across the state. I think it was like 1,800 school children didn't show up. So if the kids didn't show up, that meant that their parents had gone somewhere. They just didn't leave them there. And I want to say one other thing somebody said about the families and the children. If the children are born here, their children are U.S. citizens. If their parents haven't bothered to try to become citizens or whatever in all the time that the children are living here, I think it's incumbent upon the parents to take those U.S. citizen children with them to wherever they happen to have come from.
Let's focus on the bill, though. All right. Representative Pangio has some questions.
I don't have questions. I just wanted to, if I offended you in any way, shape, or form, I apologize. It wasn't my intent. You're an honorable guy, and I know you're very passionate about this. So I didn't mean to offend you. I just thought the logistics of what you're suggesting was next to impossible to. I mean,
just to address that.
That's all. I didn't want to think that I was, you're a good guy, and there's just a lot of people with a differing opinion than you, and it doesn't make them right or you right. It's just that's what we're all here for. So
with EVerify, if EVerify were the law of the land, and it is nationally, if you want to get a government contract with the federal government, you have to EVerify all of your employees, and not just new employees like this bill says. You have to go back and EVerify all of your employees in order to get a contract with the federal government. But if EVerify was the law of the land, or was the law in the state of Rhode Island for all employers, I would bet you my house that in 5 years, 70% of the illegal alien immigration problem would disappear in the state of Rhode Island. Because it's the only reason it exists, it's not for children and all that stuff, it's for employers that can hire illegal aliens for cheap money and get away with it, and it's going on every single day in some of the most prestigious companies in the state of Rhode Island. That's why nothing's being done about it.
I read an article in the Wall Street Journal a number of years ago, I think it was Colorado, where they instituted something like that, and there were several companies, I think, that almost went out of business because there was such an exodus of folks. So there's an important part of our economy that is reliant upon everybody, both the person at the minimum wage portion and the person at the top.
The minimum, what you're just referencing, sir, the minimum wage. If people were paying American employees livable wages, illegal aliens wouldn't have jobs. The only reason illegal aliens have jobs is because they're subjected to terrible working conditions, junk money, and unscrupulous employers, in my opinion. And some of the employers that we all know, it's just all swept under the rug. Some of the employers are very prestigious companies that hire illegal aliens. And just look around, and what are we famous for? This makes me mad. The governor is putting out this big thing about tourism. Where do most of the illegal aliens work in the state of Rhode Island? In the tourism industry.
Let's focus on the bill. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.